Doc, on your chair. On your... Hey, Doc.
Johnny Carson interviewed over 25,000 guests. The majority of tapings were professional and controlled. Then there were the moments when everything went sideways, when animals escaped and urinated on him, when guests crossed lines that should never be crossed, when Johnny completely lost control on live television. These are the 10 most intense moments in Johnny Carson history. Ed Ames' tomahawk disaster. In 1965, Ed Ames came on to promote his role as Mingo on the NBC series Daniel Boone. He wanted to demonstrate Native Americans' tomahawk throwing. They brought out a life-sized wooden cowboy silhouette as the target. Ames stood 15 feet away and explained how Native Americans practiced this skill. He gripped the handle, pulled back, and threw. The tomahawk spun through the air and stuck with a thunk, dead center in the wooden figure's crotch.
What? I didn't even know you were Jewish.
The audience erupted, but Johnny completely lost control, tears streaming, gasping for air, unable to speak for nearly 3 full minutes of live television. The camera stayed on him. You could watch him try to compose himself, look at the tomahawk stuck in that position, and crack up again. Ed Ames just stood there grinning. Johnny physically walked away from his desk to compose himself backstage. The clip became one of the most replayed moments in Tonight Show history. They showed it during Carson's final week hosting in May 1992, 27 years later, and it still killed. Don Rickles' cigarette box ambush. In 1973, Don Rickles guest hosted while Carson was on vacation. During one taping, Rickles knocked over and broke Johnny's treasured wooden cigarette box. Rickles knew Johnny would be furious.
This is not your land, you crazy cunt. You're not going to have the land. You stupid man, you're not going to have the land. It's no good.
Carson's cigarette box. Oh, I broke his box. I broke Carson's cigarette box.
The next night, Carson showed the damaged box on air, holding it up for the cameras, then looked directly into the lens and promised revenge on Rickles. The audience laughed, but Johnny meant it. Then he waited. Weeks passed, months. Rickles probably thought Johnny had forgotten, but he hadn't.
What the hell happened to this? You know how long I've had this cigarette box on this desk?
You brought that up from New York City?
I brought this from New York. What on earth?
It happened last night.
Who?
Don Rickles.
I did not see the
Don
show
Rickles
last
did it last night. He's taping across the hall.
Somebody broke my cigarette box. We're taping. I just started the show. I picked my box up off my desk that I've had for 9 years. My box is broken. They told me you broke it on the show last night.
Well, I really...
You big dummy!
Rickles stammered apologies. Caught off guard, Carson snapped back. I don't care about your scene. You broke my cigarette box. They riffed back and forth for several minutes. The unscripted cross-show ambush became an instant classic. It showed Johnny's commitment to a bit and the real affection between him and Rickles. Bette Midler makes Johnny cry. May 1992, Johnny's second-to-last Tonight Show episode. Bette Midler appeared with Robin Williams for what should have been a fun farewell. They joked for several minutes. Robin doing impressions, Bette telling stories. Then Bette suddenly shifted tone. She got serious, looked at Johnny and announced she wanted to sing something special for him. The band started One for My Baby and One More for the Road, a goodbye song about last calls and parting. She performed it directly to Johnny, not to the audience, to him, maintaining eye contact. The studio went silent, 300 people holding their breath. Carson's eyes slowly filled with tears. A man who spent 30 years maintaining control on camera, who almost never showed emotion in front of 15 million viewers. He made no attempt to hide it, did not undercut the moment with a joke, did not deflect, just sat there and listened, let the vulnerability stay on camera. When she finished, there was pure silence. Then Johnny stood, kissed her hand, and said quietly with his voice cracking, "I can't top that." He could barely get the words out. After 3 decades of being the most controlled man in television, Bette Midler found the one thing that could break through. A simple song sung with genuine love at exactly the right moment. The rampant monkey incident. In the late 70s, a wildlife professional showcased a monkey along with other animals on The Tonight Show. During rehearsal, everything went fine. The monkey sat calmly on her sleeve. But live television with hot lights and a loud audience changes everything. The second the crew went live, the monkey lunged straight onto his head and immediately urinated.
Was he spitting? Was that saliva?
The crowd gasped in unison, then broke into uncomfortable laughter. Johnny tried keeping it together, but his entire body had frozen. Production assistants swarmed him with towels from every direction. The wildlife professional grabbed the monkey and pulled him away, apologizing. Johnny went straight to his dressing room shower and spent 15 minutes washing the creature's urine from his scalp. He came back in a different suit with his hair perfectly dried and proceeded like nothing happened. No animals were ever brought back on set after this incident, which upset many fans since having animals on was unique compared to the usual human guest appearance. But Carson didn't care and never allowed it again. Don Rickles roasts Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra appeared on The Tonight Show in 1976, the legendary musician with a notorious reputation and a temper everyone knew about. He did not take jokes well, and there could be real consequences for crossing him. Seated next to Sinatra was Don Rickles, and Rickles did what Rickles always did. He launched into a fearless roast, calling Sinatra overrated, mocked his star image, treated him like any other target. Carson's face showed genuine nerves during this. You could see Johnny's jaw tighten. He knew this could go very wrong very fast on live television. The studio audience laughed, but with some tension in the air. Then Rickles grabbed Sinatra's knee and said, "Frank, believe me, I'm only kidding. You know I love you. Can I get a ride home?" Sinatra burst into genuine laughter.
Hey, Frank, it's good to see you. I just was hanging around in the hall, and they said Frank Sinatra's here, and I've never met him, you know. And I get the chills.
You'll excuse us, won't you?
Certainly. Marco Mangananzo was hurt.
Marco Mangananzo.
Fambino Bombazzo. 2 bullets in the head Thursday. Guido says hi. He hasn't had a chance to talk to you. And from Jersey City, your good friend, Bubani Umbazzo.
What's his name?
He started his car with your album on, and now he's a highway.
He clearly enjoyed being treated like a regular guy instead of a fragile icon everyone had to worship. The moment became infamous because so few people ever dared talk to Sinatra that way on national TV, and Johnny let it all play out instead of jumping in to smooth things over. That took guts. One wrong reaction from Sinatra and it would have become a disaster instead of a legendary moment. The Burmese python escapes, or Johnny. Carson instinctively jumped from his chair and backed away, fast. His face showed unfiltered fear. Incident became a classic example of the real Johnny peeking through his suave host mask. No amount of professional training prepares you for a python heading your direction. Fight or flight kicked in, and Johnny chose flight immediately. George Carlin's censorship jab. In 1983, George Carlin delivered what seemed like a harmless set of everyday observations. Just casual comedy about mundane life. Hidden in the routine was a subtle jab at TV censorship and network stupidity, including the line, "If a real stupid person becomes senile, how do you know?" The wording danced carefully around his infamous 7 dirty words routine without violating explicit broadcast rules. Johnny's reaction told you everything. A knowing smile and a quick look at the camera. He understood exactly what Carlin was doing and chose to let it slide. NBC executives received complaints afterward asking how the bit got on air. Some people on the network were annoyed. Carson went on to defend Carlin privately, argued that if standards and practices did not catch it beforehand, then Carlin had earned the right to get away with it. That was Johnny's code. If you were smart enough and talented enough to sneak something past the censors, you deserved the victory. Sammy Davis Jr.'s rapid-fire impressions. In the early 70s, a casual conversation about other entertainers suddenly turned into an impromptu showcase. Sammy Davis Jr. launched into a blisteringly fast series of impressions. Frank Sinatra, Jerry Lewis, Jimmy Stewart, Dean Martin. In under 1 minute, he cycled through multiple stars, nailing both voices and physical mannerisms perfectly, seeming to transform into each person. Johnny clutched his stomach from genuine laughter. Not polite host amusement, real, doubled-over, can't-breathe laughter. The bit was not planned as a formal segment. It grew naturally from the conversation, which made it feel even more electric and spontaneous. You were watching pure talent happen in real time with no script and no safety net. Carson later said Sammy was the most complete entertainer he had ever seen. This impression blitz became the go-to example of why. It proved Sammy could shift voices, timing, and physical energy faster than anyone else on television, turning the set into his own personal stage and leaving Johnny completely speechless. Madonna's provocative appearance. In the late 80s, Madonna was at the absolute peak of her provocative phase, pushing boundaries everywhere she went. When she arrived at The Tonight Show, she came out wearing a tight black bustier, lace gloves, and an attitude. Instead of sitting politely in the guest chair like every other guest in 30 years of Tonight Show history, she immediately climbed up and perched herself on top of Johnny's desk, crossed her legs, leaned back, forced him to physically lean back in his own chair just to maintain personal space. She opened the interview with a heavily suggestive line about choosing Johnny for her first time because she heard he was gentle. The audience immediately started whooping and hollering. Then she went further, flirted aggressively with him on camera, reached over and toyed with his cue cards, asked point blank whether he wore boxers or briefs. Johnny looked genuinely flustered in a way viewers had never seen. She picked up his coffee mug, slowly licked her finger, tapped the side of the mug, and whispered "too hot" while staring directly at him. The studio audience was losing their minds. Johnny visibly blushed underneath his stage makeup. He kept glancing desperately toward the control room, with an expression that clearly said, "Someone please help me here." When he tried to steer the conversation in a more professional direction by asking about her upcoming tour, Madonna completely blew off the question, waved her hand dismissively, "Let's talk about your fantasy instead," made the whole segment even more sexually charged. The phones in the control room started ringing during the actual live taping. Standards and practices calling to ask what the hell was happening on their network. Can someone shut this down? Johnny cut to commercial break as quickly as humanly possible. Off camera, he wiped his forehead and joked to the crew that they better book a nun for tomorrow's show to balance out what just happened. The overnight ratings came in and spiked massively. NBC executives wanted Madonna back immediately for another appearance. Johnny flat out refused. He told producers once was memorable television, twice would just be self-destructive. He understood that some moments only work once. Madonna had pushed him further out of his comfort zone than almost any guest in 30 years ever managed to do. And that was enough. Arnold Schwarzenegger's German prank. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a major action star by then, and a Tonight Show regular. On one appearance, Johnny asked the opening question. Arnold responded with a long, earnest answer entirely in German. Johnny and the audience clearly did not understand a word. Carson looked genuinely confused. He glanced toward the control room with an expression that said, "What is happening here? Should I stop this?" Instead of shutting it down, he made a choice. He played along, started nodding seriously, occasionally replied with made-up German-sounding gibberish. The audience caught on and started laughing at this absurd conversation nobody could understand. After a few minutes, Arnold broke character, switched to English, admitted he had always wanted to see how Johnny would handle that situation. The bit worked perfectly because Carson surrendered control and joined the prank instead of fighting it. He turned a potential train wreck into one of the show's great comedy moments just by being willing to look foolish. What made the moment even better was how small it looked on paper. There was no big setup, no writers feeding Johnny lines, just a strange answer in the wrong language, and a host deciding to lean into the chaos. The cameras cut to Ed McMahon trying not to laugh. Doc Severinsen lowered his trumpet and shook his head. Crew members off to the side were doubled over. Everyone in that studio understood they were watching pure live television, the kind you cannot plan and can never fully repeat. Arnold later said that this was when he knew Johnny respected him as more than a bodybuilder who became an actor. Most hosts would have panicked. They would have cut to commercials or snapped at him for going off script. Carson did the opposite. He protected the bit. He allowed Arnold to be the clever one and took the role of the confused straight man. That required real confidence. It also required trust that the audience would stay with him even when he pretended to be lost. The segment turned into one of those clips that comedians studied. It showed them how to survive when a guest goes sideways or when a joke takes a hard left. Do not freeze. Do not cling to the blue cards on the desk. Listen, react, say something ridiculous if you have to. Johnny turned nonsense syllables into punchlines simply by committing to them. His fake German sounded terrible, but he delivered it with the same rhythm and timing he gave any monologue joke. For viewers at home, the message was simple. If Johnny was laughing, it was safe to laugh too. The audience did not need subtitles. They just needed to see that familiar face leaning back in his chair, wiping his eyes and giving in to the silliness. In an era before viral clips, people still talked about that appearance the next day at work and in school hallways. They tried to imitate Carson's nonsense phrases, They repeated the story of the night Arnold spoke German for minutes on end, and Johnny somehow made not understanding him the funniest part of the show. Clips like this reveal why The Tonight Show stayed on the top for more than 3 long decades. Because Carson knew when to stay in control and when to let the chaos win, when to protect his dignity and when to look ridiculous, when to play it safe, and when to let guests push boundaries. Most hosts would have stopped half these segments. Johnny let them play out and became legendary because of it. Is there a certain moment you think was the most intense? And what other Johnny Carson moment should have made this list? Drop your picks in the comments below. And if you want more stories about the wildest moments in late-night television history, make sure you subscribe to the channel. These moments defined an era, and somebody needs to remember them.